Don't call the member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this motion is extremely important to be debated in this chamber because it reflects a fundamental discussion the Australian community is having about the future of our natural environment, our care and concern for it, and how this government is taking sensible, proportionate, practical measures to reduce Australia's greenhouse gas emissions with the sanction and support of the Australian people, consistent with the proposition that we took to the election. Ultimately, Deputy Speaker, because we're talking about a transition of the economy to reduce our CO2 footprint and equivalent greenhouse gases, and the transition that will occur, and the fact that there are trade-offs, and there are, it's fundamentally a discussion about how we're going to take Australians forward and not leave people behind. But more critical to that, it's a discussion about trust. Trust that governments will take positions to the public at an election and honour them. And the objective of this motion is to break that trust, to say that we should declare something, and if it's serious, and Labor is serious, it's to, and the other members present who supported it, to reorientate the entirety of the Australian economy and society towards a singular purpose. We do this from time to time. We do it in times of war, where the threat that's imposed is so immediate and so extreme that every single other concern goes out the window. And if they're not honestly putting forward that proposition and backing up with policy along that proposition, then it's a dishonest motion. So no matter which way you deal with it, it's an issue around trust. We either support this and turn around to the Australian people and show contempt for them and their concern for their livelihoods and their interests and their jobs, if we support it, or we face a situation where the Labor Party shows contempt for the voters of Australia. And they do so because at every point the opposition has sought to do one thing on the issue of climate change and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, which is to trade on that trust of the Australian people and make ridiculous allegations about what is and isn't being done. Now, of course, we know full well that trust is not an issue that the opposition cares much for. After all, we do remember where the "there will be no carbon tax under a government I lead" ended up. And they're continuing to do that in the way they approach this issue, because what we've seen is that their rhetoric doesn't match their action. Only last week, the International Monetary Fund released a report saying even if we were to go down the path that the Labor Party or the Greens want us to do, you would need a carbon tax in excess of $75 US or more than 111 Australian dollars. Let them get up here now and argue that that's what they want and that that's what they will support in this chamber right now. Of course, we know they won't, because this is a dishonest motion. We know they won't because it doesn't enjoy the support of the Australian people. We know they won't because it's actually not sustainable policy. And by the way, that was the start, not the end. But we know it won't actually deliver the sustainable transition for the Australian economy that this nation needs. Instead, we, the government, took clear policy proposals the last election. Twice we've gone to an election saying that we will support and honour our targets under the Paris Agreement to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions between 26% and 28%. And we are doing so. That we would have massive investment in major new baseload energy generation in this country, whether it's the extension of the Snowy Hydro project or connecting more of the surplus wasted energy provided over to the Australian mainland. And to take lectures from the Greens, and let's not forget who the Greens are, a political party founded on opposing the investment in renewable energy in Tasmania. We are doing everything we can with the trust of the Australian people, and what the Labor Party wants us to do and the Greens want us to do is break that trust.
Members' time has expired.